Hello to all you Patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 234 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the #1 police bashing defund the government show in Canada. We're recording on June 10th, 2019. No, wait, 2020. I don't know what year it is.
Yeah, whatever.
As always, my name is Andrew. Joining me tonight, Gavin and Benny.
And we'd love to hear your feedback about the show and how you could possibly defund us, or fund us would be even better. We'll hear about that more later. But please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Version of the show is available on Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, a bunch of other places. You already know, though, because you're listening. But tell your friends.
You can check us out on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast and Instagram at /Canadian Patriot Podcast.
I mean, I'm not telling you you're wrong, but the Instagram uses an app.
Yeah.
I know the link is there, but like,
if you need to figure out, like, yeah, if you're not,
if you need to use the Instagram, call someone.
Grandchild.
Yeah, we'll get Earl to email you a cassette tape with instructions.
I think that's just regular mail at that point.
Yeah, whatever. It works.
We obviously need your help. To support the show and buy us a new cassette deck, visit patreon.com/CPP, become a Patreon today. You get a better quality version of the show for just $1 an episode. And since we moved to the 2-show-a-week format for the COVID vacation, Patreons get early access to the midweek show. Non-Patreons, you have to wait the week. So if you want the show when it comes out, you have to, toss me $1. I will dance for $1. I'll do a lot of things for $1. Show you're not a communist. Buy a CPP t-shirt for just $19.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com and follow the link on the right, all the way to the right. You want to go extremely to the right. It's time for my favorite segment. It's called What Are We Drinking? This is where I ask my co-hosts, what are they drinking? I'm going to go clockwise like always, because that's starting at the top on the right. Benny, what are you drinking?
Water. It's a little dark yellow, so we need a.
Is it at least like filtered water or like just government juice straight out of the tap?
Government juice straight out of the tap.
Man, you got to get something to take the atrazine out of the water. Do you want them to turn the freaking frogs gay?
I'm
no. The answer is no. You don't want them to turn the freaking frogs gay. Come on, what would Alex Jones say?
Yeah. Get yourself a Berkey, Benny. Get yourself fixed up. Clean water is best water.
Yeah, non-atrazine, non-chlorine, whatever all the other good things are that the Berkey filters out.
Yeah.
All right, Gavin, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a Jack Daniels and cherry vanilla Coke Zero this evening. It's quite delicious.
I mean, I'm still not sure I'm a fan of Jack, but I like where this is going.
Does the trick.
I continue to drink the Grumpy Goat IPA. Because he is grumpy, and so am I.
There's a lot to be grumpy about, so.
Well, let's start with things. We alluded to this on the Monday night show.
Yeah, like 2 weeks ago.
Well, I mean, we keep saying we're going to talk about that RCMP, and then we talk about them in dribs and drabs, and then on Monday we touched on this, but I want to go into some more detail. So this came out late last week, June the 4th, last Thursday as we're recording this. It's on the Post Millennial. It's come out in other sources since then. The Nova Scotia shooters' guns were all obtained illegally. Every single one of the guns that were used in the mass killing in Nova Scotia were obtained in contravention to all of our firearms laws.
Wow. Color me shocked.
I know. It's not like we haven't been saying this for 6 weeks or whatever.
Yeah. Like, immediately following the event.
They haven't identified the actual model of firearm, correct?
No, they have been woefully lacking in detail. They have said that there have been 5 firearms that were involved. One, obviously, from the deceased RCMP constable, who the gunman shot, killed, and then stole their duty firearm. 3 firearms that were obtained illegally from the United States and then somehow smuggled into the country, I guess. I mean, purely speculation on my part.
This is where I want to nitpick here at this stage. Illegally obtained in the States. Did he purchase them in the States illegally, or because
unlikely? I
feel like it's not worth nitpicking. However, he acquired them in the U.S. Because, conceivably, you can be a foreign national and in certain circumstances, in certain jurisdictions in the U.S., purchase a firearm.
So, but in that case, what would be illegal would be him bringing them into the country versus obtaining them.
Yes, but that's sort of this
it's a distinction without a difference, or a difference without a distinction.
So I believe Arizona is one of the places that a Canadian could go and purchase a firearm of their choice from a retailer, and all you have to do is do the required 3-day sort of waiting period and background check, and you're fine. And then you legally have purchased it in the U.S. The problem is that yes, while it's legally purchased there, you can't just bring it across the border without declaring it and having all the paperwork. But that's sort of irrelevant whether he smuggled it in himself or somebody else smuggled it in. The method of transport from the U.S. into Canada was the same, and therefore it's kind of the same thing, whether he bought it off some guy on the street selling illegal guns that have been smuggled up, or he smuggled it himself. Irrelevant.
Yeah, the smuggling of the guns is really the problem here. You can't just take guns from America into Canada.
Right.
I mean, there are exceptions to that. There are ways that you can buy guns legally in the U.S. and then legally continue to have them in Canada. But let's assume that these were all handguns or otherwise restricted firearms. You would have to have a firearms license regardless. And if they were restricted, you would have to register them with the government on import.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, you're
certainly not impossible, but
your original point of it being irrelevant is I think stands. I was just curious on that.
Yeah, no,
I mean but whether he straw purchased them from somebody in the U.S. or whether he purchased them himself in the U.S. following the necessary process to buy them in that jurisdiction, or whether he used the gun show loophole to purchase them from or whether they were like straw man, or whether he smuggled them or someone else smuggled the point all still stands is that in order for him to legally own them in Canada, regardless of how they were acquired elsewhere, you have to import them, have a firearms license, and where necessary, if they're restricted, register them.
Yeah.
And I feel like those were the steps that were not done, was the illegal importation and ownership piece.
Yeah.
Right. No, 100%. Okay.
But I mean, that just kind of goes along with the whole thing with any other crime, and almost immediately we know where the gun came from and what the gun was, or at least some more slightly accurate things. We're oh, it was a illegal handgun, or and if it's a black rifle, you know what it is immediately.
It's a SIG MPX. It's always a SIG MPX. I mean, if it's at a nightclub in Florida, it's a SIG MPX.
Yeah, but it's still an AR-15. Always.
But it's also an AR-15, unless it's an AK-47.
Yeah. But yeah, all of these things for every other crime committed anywhere in the world, basically. But somehow for this one, we're over a month after, and now they're finally officially determining that at least they're all illegally sourced, but they still won't tell us what they are.
Yeah.
Well, let's deal with the fifth gun, the gun that we've not talked about, because there's one other firearm that was obtained from the estate of a deceased person, and on further investigation, it seems to me that the estate of the deceased person is either a friend or relative of the crazy nut that shot a bunch of people and otherwise murdered, killed, immolated people in Nova Scotia. The estate seems to have belonged to a friend or family member who was an RCMP officer.
So where did you find that information?
Well, it's article.
It's not strictly corroborated in this article from the National Post, but there have been other articles, and we have a National Post article further down in the stack, okay, which we'll get to shortly. But the Nova Scotia shooter, and again, I hate the way that they title this, but I'll read the National Post title. Nova Scotia shooter dressed as a Mountie during his rampage was related to 2 retired RCMP members. There was another article that I was reading that alleges that the firearm that came from an estate was either from a friend or family member who was or was related to an RCMP officer. So I feel like it may have actually been something that was like an RCMP, like one of those really awful looking Silver Smith, like 4-digit, whatever, awful 6490 guns, whatever they issued the RCMP. Like, I feel like it's one of those awful Smith pistols. But there's nothing to actually corroborate that because I've just pieced this together from multiple sources. And the fact that he was related to 2 retired RCMP members, and then he's got this off-the-books gun from an estate sale. Because again, like, your estate can sell your firearms. So when I die of natural causes, don't get ahead of yourselves. When I die of natural causes, and my wife goes to sell all of my guns, I expect you all to tell her what they're actually worth. Not what I told her I paid, and not what you want to get them for. But, like, fair market value.
3 chickens and no more.
I mean, depends on the gun. I have at least one gun that is worth exactly 3 chickens. I mean, they have to be good chickens, still capable of laying, but...
Oh, okay. I was going to say meat bird, like, I'll even cook him for her.
I mean, you can work that out after I'm deceased, Benny.
Nah, not for many, many, many years.
Well, that's what I say. Of entirely natural causes, and then don't give her the number that I've told her, and don't give her the number that you want to pay. Give her a fair market value. So you can definitely obtain estate sale firearms, but you still have to have a license to do that. And if they're a restricted firearm, they still have to be registered.
Yep.
So. Well, I guess, or prohibited, but in that case, you have to have a prohibited license, and all the prohibited rules apply. But
there's a rule in place, or multiple rules depending on what it is, and again, those weren't followed. So all the different ways of illegally obtaining one, they basically did. So all of the gun laws that are currently all in effect failed to stop this from happening.
Failed spectacularly and miserably because 5 different illegal guns obtained by 3 different illegal means.
Yeah. And I mean, the 3 all from the U.S. may have all been done separately as well. So it's failed on multiple occasions, or maybe once, but spectacularly because smuggling one gun is hard enough, but 3 guns would be more. Yeah.
I mean, it depends on the size of your prison pocket, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, fitting even 1 subcompact in there would be tight, but 3, whew. And we know at least some of them are rifles, right?
Do we?
Well, we think that some of them were rifles. We don't know because, again, there's no information, and that actually is the next piece that I want to bring up. This is in CTV News. This goes back to Friday, May 22nd. This has been a little bit of time working on this episode to get it ready. Prime Minister avoids promising federal inquiry into Nova Scotia shooting rampage. Again, spree killing, mass killing, something like that. Shooting rampage is not, I think, an accurate description because we've talked about the 22 victims, about half of them were immolated.
Yeah. Does that mean die of smoke?
Set on fire.
Lit on fire.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm not really up to date on my murder terms.
Well, I like using the $5 words because it feels like it makes my degree worthwhile.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not always necessarily murder. I mean, I was immolated partially a number of years ago.
But I mean, allegedly that was for a good time.
Yeah, it was not. I can tell you that much. That's for sure.
Yeah, I believe that. So at the daily circus in front of the cottage, the Prime Minister was asked if they would, if he would, I feel like I'm referring to him as a non-gender specific pronoun. They were asked The Prime Minister was asked.
I mean, if the shoe fits, right?
Well, if the multicolored sock fits.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister was asked if he would commit to a federal inquiry into the Nova Scotia mass spree killing. He's managed to dance around the issue, not answer the question, give a soundbite. He feels for the community, supports the RCMP. He feels bad about the whole thing, but he's not actually going to do anything about it. Let me read part of the statement from in front of the cottage. Sorry, I'm just getting into character. People have many questions about what happened in Nova Scotia, and we are encouraging the RCMP to do its work in the initial investigation. But as we move forward, there will of course be larger questions to ask, and we will work with the government of Nova Scotia on getting those answers. So, like, a really good non-answer.
Yeah, it sounds like he's going to do something, but really he hasn't committed to anything. I mean, if he's good at one thing, it's that.
Not committing.
Yeah.
I wonder how
Sophie
got him to marry her.
I was just going to make a joke about Idris Elba's girlfriend. I mean, Sophie, just to be clear.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is, I guess, if he has an inquiry, then too much of the stuff that we're bringing to light for the small listenership we have would be brought to light across the whole country, and then it would be a lot harder for him to justify his bizarre actions in the Order in Council and the blaming of all of this on the failure of,
do you remember how fast that got memory hole? Because that was a topic of the Order in Council for like 3 days, that if we ban these guns, then the Nova Scotia mass shooting would never have taken place because this person wouldn't have been able to get those guns. Well, I mean, more than a month later, we still don't know what firearms were actually used. Not that it really matters, because all of them were obtained illegally, which is what we said all along, was this guy is likely obtained his firearms legally, and even if he hadn't, he was still breaking other laws, so which part of the law matters? To this guy, none. It's like, murder is illegal. Mass shootings are illegal. Lighting buildings on fire are illegal. Lighting buildings on fire with people in them, also illegal. Running people off the road, illegal. Running people over with vans of peace, illegal. It doesn't matter.
I mean, lighting up the local police hall. Oh, wait, no, that was the RCMP that did that, but also illegal.
yeah. Lighting the local fire hall up because you think it's a threat.
Yeah.
What if they didn't think it was a threat?
Yeah, imagine what it would have done that. Oh, God, imagine if it was painted black.
Whew.
Man, that fire hall would have caught such a beating.
Not going there.
Or even worse, if it looked like a dog. He would have shot that for sure.
You're getting the RCMP confused with the ATF.
Yeah, hey, they're one and the same up here.
Oh, it's sad, but it's not wrong. So the Prime Minister has managed to spectacularly tap dance around the issue while giving hopes and prayers. And the Prime Minister of Nova Scotia, the Premier of Nova Scotia, has basically said, wait and see what Ottawa does, because it's up to the RCMP, and the RCMP is a federal police service. So the RCMP needs to decide what's going on, and that means Ottawa needs to launch the investigation, which is actually our next article in the deck. This is on the Halifax Examiner. Mark Fury and the RCMP's secret army of Smurfs, which sounds a lot cooler than it actually is.
Where are the blue guys?
They're not wearing the right kind of funny hats. They're wearing funny hats. They're just not the right kind. So, Mark Fury is the Justice Minister. He was a Mountie. The Premier of Nova Scotia, McNeil, said that this is up to Ottawa. We just talked about Trudeau saying, basically, hopes and prayers, but I'm not doing it. So good luck to the province. And the province is saying that it's up to the Mounties, and that means it's up to Ottawa. So basically, nothing is going anywhere.
Yeah. It's political ping pong. It's just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Well, to reference an article that we brought up a couple of weeks ago, after reading this quickly, Mark Fury himself is ex-RCMP, which is, once RCMP, always RCMP, and the RCMP can do no wrong. So he's not motivated to find any fault with with what's going on to do an inquiry.
Well, and why would you be? Like, I mean, you're on the nose with that. Like, once you're in the gang, you're in the gang. That's
right.
Why would he do anything against his brother officers to cast them in a poor light? And I mean, again, like, we've talked about this at length. My stance is disband the regiment, defund the RCMP, replace them with a new police service. Like, I don't know if I can be more clear about that. The RCMP should no longer exist. It has outlived its usefulness and needs to be replaced.
Yeah, well, only in the areas that don't have a provincial force or a local force. Like, not
no,
like,
I mean,
yeah, like we don't need a new federal agency, just to clarify.
No, I'm of a different opinion. I believe we do need a new federal agency, Gavin. I think that the RCMP have outlived their usefulness. There is a level of institutional inertia, as we can see with the Justice Minister having been a Mountie for the majority of his career.
I agree.
He spent 3.5 decades in an RCMP uniform.
Yeah, he's going to have some bias.
The RCMP, in my opinion, needs to be disbanded, and a new federal police force stood up in their place, because they are. I mean, we can talk about the whole like colonialism and the Antifa opinion that the RCMP was founded to displace the Native Canadians, which it's not, and that's not how it works, and that's not what Northwest Mounted Police was for. And we have a bunch of other examples of this happening in other British colonies, like the British South Africa Police, and what was the Hong Kong Constabulary? They had a similar police force there that was stood up by the British to control their interests. The East India Company prior to that did something similar with their own precursor to a police force. The problem is not the RCMP in like the history of the RCMP. The problem is the RCMP today does all of these things that are not federal policing.
Yeah.
We need to disband them and build an actual federal police force that's responsible for federal law enforcement. Part of that is, of course, stopping them from taking contract jobs in provincial and municipal roles that should be given to provincial and municipal police forces. But if those places don't want to stand up police forces, they've been going to the RCMP because the RCMP is obligated through an act of parliament to provide policing to those communities.
So the major question that comes into my mind, and I have very little knowledge of the history, and I brought it up, I think, the last episode I was on. How do you prevent this new entity taking on the same problems of the RCMP just by the very fact that, yes, you're disbanding the regiment, but where are you going to find all these new bodies? Where are you going to get all that stuff? You're just basically going to take out the name RCMP, put a new name on it, and
I mean, that is partly my fear, and we have seen this with CSIS because a lot of CSIS people came from the RCMP, and we see a lot of the same institutional problems as a result of that. I don't know that there's an easy solve for that. If it were easy, it wouldn't be up to me to solve it, right? Like, I solve easy problems. This is complex and difficult.
Yeah, you have to handpick the key people in power. I mean, that's why I'm fine with just like getting rid of it altogether and not having a federal police thing, because we don't really. I mean,
I'm with you to a point, but there are certain things that I think need to be handled at a federal level because of the way that our laws are. Because we have too many things that are controlled by the federal government to make everything a states' right issue, small s, and leave it up to the provinces.
Well, I mean, all the more reason to fix certain things like firearms.
Not disagreeing. Yeah. I'm not disagreeing, but like.
Given the system we're in, there are some.
We're a confederation of convenience that is based on predominantly federal rules. There are other things that are handled at the provincial level, but I mean that is mostly regulatory law, not criminal law. Most criminal law is handled at the federal level.
Right, but you don't have the RCMP bashing down your door to arrest you. That's going to be the local constable doing
Yeah, I mean, if they were to have a very, very small federal force that is used only for the things that nobody else can handle, then I'm not against it. And then that would also help keep them in check because they wouldn't have all of this power based on
I really
size.
think that's really a big piece of this, is that it's such a big bloated bureaucratic organization that we really need to re-examine the scope of law enforcement. And I have a really hard time with this because, like, as a person who generally respects what individual law enforcement officers do, and that it's generally a crappy job to have, and you're generally dealing with the dregs of society, like, I don't have a problem with that aspect of it. I have my issue stems from the problems with the institutionalization of law enforcement in this country being effectively armed tax collectors rather than actually policing the community.
Yeah. I mean, we touched on that last Monday. The same kind of thing with, like, the whole...
I feel like we touch on that every Monday.
Well, yeah, but, like, the whole defund the police and what it actually means and everything. And I would say that, like, oddly enough, we're agreeing with the left in that the cops shouldn't be doing things that aren't cop jobs.
What?
And they should
Agreeing with the
focus
left for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. You know, and that the right agency, whatever that agency be, that has the special training and know-how and knowledge should be the ones handling it. And then, yeah, so if we were to disband the RCMP and prop up a newer federal entity that really only dealt with the things that have to be dealt on a federal level, and that reduce the size of it, I think then, yeah, I'm okay with that. But I mean, I would be fine with just getting rid of it altogether. And
I think we have to, just because of the nature of the way that our laws work as our Confederation of Convenience is structured. I don't think we can not have a federal police service, because I think there are too many things that the provinces won't or can't do without federal oversight. Not because I think they should or they shouldn't, just because the way the law is written,
that's the way that it is. Yeah.
But then, if you were to then say, no, the RCMP no longer actually has any constables. All officers fall into a investigational role or an intelligence role, and that any actual quote unquote policing, going out to the community and everything, would be a local establishment. I think that would help.
That is not a terrible idea, because I really think that's, like, the specialty of the RCMP is dealing with, like, murderers that run across the country and wire fraud and financial crime and organized crime and RICO cases and the mafia and major criminal enterprise, like that level of... They shouldn't be arresting your local street hoodlums for selling dime bags of weed.
No, but they should be working with those people to get the information they need to build their RICO case and all of that stuff.
So, like an FBI agent of, say, the 80s, would that be a nice safe time?
I mean, where less 10 millimeters and more shorts like Magnum PI, but I mean,
basically you send in 2 officers or 2 agents into a community to help sort out a situation. Use local assets. You don't bring in your own, and you work with the locals to fix a problem.
Yeah, they'd be more like liaisons or coordinators than actual constables. But
and then
I mean, they could still wear funny hats and boots if they really wanted when there was a ceremony. But
yeah, and I'm okay with them keeping the musical ride. Like, that's fine. Like, if they want to wear red serges and pointy hats and ride horses, then, like, you do you. But, like, while you're on the clock, you investigate, like, murder and kidnap and cross provincial boundary trafficking of narcotics and, like,
not the guy that's going across the street to get beer and just across the street happens to be Quebec, but like actual crimes that are going across provincial lines. Yeah,
I do like where the Albertan is going with having municipal police services with elected chiefs. Although,
I saw that.
Yeah, chiefs.
I don't know that we can call them chiefs.
Term. Yeah. Well, unless they're like they work for the reserve, in which case they can be called chiefs, but only if they're an elected chief or a hereditary chief. Then it's okay, but otherwise it's not.
So I do like the idea of having a level of law enforcement that is local and elected. Not necessarily individual constables, but like a sheriffing system where the chief law enforcement officer of a county or jurisdiction is an elected role where you run for office, and if you do a crappy job, the citizenry can not only remove you from office, but like actually have a recall election and replace you. Because we don't have recall legislation.
I've sort of moved away of the idea. Like I never liked the idea, and I've grown more into this position recently, that the idea of the punishment for a poor politician or any elected official is being voted out. I believe that if you've done an extremely poor job in your job that you got voted out, or not that you got voted out, that you did a poor job, there should be more repercussions for it than just, well, I'm sorry, you're no longer you're not on the government dole anymore, but you get a pension.
I mean, I think that there's a lot of election reform that we could look at.
Yeah.
I mean, within the scope of this, I'm not sure that we're going to get through very much of it tonight, but I agree with you, Benny. I don't think that you should be going into politics to make money, and I would like to see that reformed. And I would like to see our election process reformed so that we can actually have recall elections. So if someone is doing a crappy job, we don't have to wait till the next election to vote them out. We can get whatever that is, some sort of a plurality of the citizenry to
if enough people say this
light their pitchforks and torches and go to their office and demand their removal.
Yeah, and then it goes to a vote or whatever, and they have to run again, and then that's fine.
Well, that's what I mean, like having a recall election.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I don't want it to be
in Canada. Like, we don't have the legislation to support recall elections.
I don't want it to be totally like the U.S. though, where you have to like literally vote on every single person. Like, I don't give a shit who the coroner is. Like, they should just be somebody that's qualified to do the job.
Well, and there is a balance there. I'm not saying we vote for everything, and that's why I'm saying like,
but key people
Andrew's,
that are
Andrew's happy place, like Lethbridge County, Alberta, has a sheriff, and he's the sheriff of Lethbridge. And if he does a shit job, the citizenry of the county of Lethbridge have a recall election and get a new one. And if he does a good job, then he keeps getting paid. But like, I'm not saying we vote for every constable, dog catcher, and ambulance driver.
Because that just gets like annoying, and then eventually people are just like, I don't care, and they tick boxes, right? But yes, I agree. Like key positions that are essential to have some accountability built into it. Yes, absolutely.
Well, and I feel like the head of your law enforcement agency for your local jurisdiction is an important piece of that, and I think that especially the local jurisdiction is key, right? Like
if law enforcement is supposed to be part of the community and working with the community and all of that, then that would help bring that community together because they actually voted for this person in charge. So in all the things going on right now in the big cities and in the States especially, it would maybe go away if there was a little bit more community.
Novel concept. I'm not sure if it'll fly.
Yeah, maybe it's too hippie.
Might be a little bit left wing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's a lot that we could figure out and like try and thought experiment through how that might work, but I don't think our current system is working.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we're necessarily the brightest people to propose the new solution.
We totally are.
I
totally are.
My opinion is that there needs to be a new solution because what we have is obviously not working.
Yeah, but no, we're totally qualified. I'm at least halfway through my drink. That qualifies me.
I mean, I am an expert.
Yeah.
Let's look at more things at the RCMP that's done silly. This is also the Halifax Examiner. Cracks are forming in the RCMP cone of silence. This is also going back to the 21st of May.
Yeah.
The gist of it is that the RCMP commissioner has nothing to say on the topic of the Nova Scotia mass shooting. That's the gist of it. However, people within the RCMP are starting to say things to the media and are starting to be cited as unnamed sources. So, retired Mounties are being involved, unnamed sources that claim to be active members are involved, 911 dispatchers are involved. The RCMP is not expressly saying anything, but a lot of this, I think, stems from the 2014 shooting of the 3 Mounties in Moncton. That was the call to give all RCMP officers in Nova Scotia, in New Brunswick, C7 patrol rifles in their cars.
I thought those had no place in Canada.
Well, it's different if it's a patrol rifle.
Oh, okay.
Different if it's a patrol rifle. there have been problems with the way that the dispatch was handled. We've talked before about the eccentricities of the timeline that the RCMP has provided and then subsequently revised.
Yeah, I mean, and the story of what happened at the fire hall has changed a couple of times.
And we still don't have a real outcome of what happened at the fire hall and why members of the RCMP decided to
shoot at other members of the RCMP.
Drive it away.
Yeah. Like, whoever those two guys, they better have a very, very, very good explanation as to why and why they didn't confirm their target. And then once they realized they had made a mistake, why they just drove off without.
Or
no, that's
they're
fair.
Really buddy with the station chief.
Because, like, I mean, if I was the guy that was there, like, I get, like, okay, they're on the lookout for an RCMP car in the area. They round the corner and they're, like, searching frantically for this, and they see a lone RCMP car sitting there. If that was me, I'd be like, aha! But you got to confirm your target, right? Like, that's kind of the important part of this whole thing. And, like, if they just see a car and nobody, you don't just light up the car. And you don't just, like, if they saw the car and then a guy in an RCMP uniform, they can't just light that guy up either. And, like, if I was the guy that was on the receiving end of all of that fire, I'd be pretty furious that they didn't bother to follow through on the things that they're supposed to be doing. Because, like, I almost got killed because you guys are idiots. Like, I would be screaming for their jobs at the very least, if not their own, heads. But that's just me, maybe. I don't know. I kind of try to not get shot at it on a daily basis.
I also make it a point of not getting shot at. I would really like the RCMP commissioner or the premier of Nova Scotia or the prime minister of our country. I would like for somebody to actually have an inquiry into this and tell me in black and white, 400-page document with sources and charts and pictures exactly what happened. I would like to know why this individual was known to police and nothing was done about it. I would like to know how he obtained all of these illegal firearms and nothing was done about it. I would like
potentially from RCMP members.
I would like to understand the timeline of events. I would like to understand why. What was that large urban center that he was driving towards? Halifax?
Yeah. Why they didn't send anybody when?
Why? Well, the rumor is that they were specifically told not to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would like copies of, like, the radio logs and the memorandums or however it is that they do, like, the police equivalent of a work order.
Yeah.
Because there must be something that says, like, Officer X, go to location Y at time Z. Like, there has to be a record of that, right?
Yeah.
So where are those records? Did Halifax PD get told by somebody to not do this? Did they elect to not do this? Like,
where's the blame laying on this? Because, like, that's huge.
Not even blame. I would just like to know what actually transpired in black and white, presented with facts and arguments and, like, logical support. I would like to understand what happened and why. Why is there not being an inquiry into this?
I feel like our last article addresses that, but
let's hit that last article.
I don't know if it addresses why, but it addresses why there won't be moving forward.
If they're, the remains of the Nova Scotia mass shooting property bulldozed, as I can't probably pronounce Portapique aims to heal. They don't want to focus on this. They don't want to fix it. Prime Minister already has. He put in his OIC. Everything's fine now.
Yeah. Do you notice how quickly it went from being the OIC to stop things like this from happening to being totally unrelated, and that just got memory hold? Because I noticed. Because there was like a 3 or 4 day period, and then the RCMP said that he never had an FAC, and then the government was like, oh, we're just going to, like, look the other way. We're not going to talk about it.
Yeah, that meme of that weird-looking puppet where he's, like, looking there and then looking away, that's what's happening. Yeah.
That was the Prime Minister, but with, like, more beard.
Yeah. Oh, no, Sophie wasn't in that photo.
Oh. That's a good point.
Where
Where is Idris Elba's girlfriend? I haven't seen her lately.
She's
Easter.
hanging out with him again.
Easter was the last photo, and they were all together in their cottage in Quebec.
Yeah, Easter was a while ago.
Cottage.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Not that I have one.
But
if I did,
it's
Who
June.
can afford a cottage?
It's June. Easter was a while ago. Where's she been hiding since?
I'm telling you, man, it's with Idris Elba.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw a movie with him as the bad guy.
No, he's not. He's not a bad actor. I mean,
I don't know. We'll wait till the video comes out, I guess. We'll see who the better actor is, him or Sophie.
Oh.
Yeah. So I get that, like, the community wants to heal. I get that people are unhappy that there's homes that have been lit on fire. I get that there's people that have been murdered. But it seems very suspicious to me to bulldoze. I'm going to call it a crime scene. I don't know if it was ever actually declared a crime scene, but it seems like this is a place where there would be a lot of evidence about a mass murderer. It seems like the kind of thing that you would not want to wantonly destroy. It seems like not something you would want to carefully catalog and take all of the information out of, and then maybe destroy.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody that reads a lot on, like, psychology and weird things like that, because that's just what I do. You know what really helps people get closure? Answers.
Oh, it's almost like there should be some sort of like an inquiry.
Yeah, which becomes increasingly harder to do and to get good actual answers when the evidence is literally bulldozed away.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the mass murderer, spree killer, whatever, I still haven't decided like what the best thing is to call this guy. But spree. If I'm not mistaken, he lit his own property on fire. But just because it was lit on fire doesn't mean that it destroyed everything, right? Like, that's not how fires work.
Yeah, but the RCMP apparently don't have enough resources in the area anyways to do a proper investigation, so you might as well just bulldoze it. Why not?
So bring resources in.
If only we had a federal police force that had, like, the unlimited money printer of government going burr to fund some sort of an investigation to build a 400-page inquiry document that explained what happened.
Why are we?
I don't know if I can express how annoyed I am by this.
Why are we borrowing money when we could just print it? Like, those two things don't seem to line up.
Yeah, but I mean, the money printer goes per.
We're not having discussion tonight on modern monetary theory. Tune in on Monday to hear me rant about how money doesn't work.
This is how I learn about things. Okay.
So we're gonna need to go to we're gonna need to go to 3 episodes a week, and one of them will be all about economics and how it works and doesn't work. Tune in, Trudeau. You can use that. Yeah.
Budgets, in fact, do not balance themselves.
Yeah.
You know what else goes burr?
So,
milling machines?
I was going to say A10 warthogs, but
no, they go Bert. There's a T on the end of it. Subtle difference. Yeah.
Subtle difference, but important.
But if you have a milling machine, in theory, you could make things that go Bert.
I mean, I just want to be at Fairchild that built the A10. I want to be at the table when those engineers sat down and went, all right, so
let's put wings on it.
I designed a Gatling gun. And I put wings on it.
Yeah. So
and then they like, what are you smoking?
Yeah, but no. So let's backtrack that just a little bit further. There was a guy that must have gone to them and goes, so we've got all this depleted uranium. Can you guys come up with something to do with it?
20 million.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. 20 millimeter depleted uranium rounds. Yeah, that's a thing.
And then someone was like, yes.
Well, we've got this GAU-8 Avenger. I guess we could chamber it in 20 millimeter depleted uranium. Sure.
Yeah.
Did you know it flies?
Yeah.
What? Even better.
Yeah. I mean, when you build a plane around a giant gun, like.
No. You build a flying gun. That's the
beautiful things happen.
God, I would love to fly in one of those things when they fire that thing off. That'd be amazing.
All right, let's remind the listeners, there are petitions. You should go and sign them. Your wife should go and sign them. Your girlfriend should go and sign them. You should not remind them at the same time, unless you're into that, in which case, Idris Elba, carry on.
Yeah.
The disappointing news, still less than 250,000 signatures on the most signed petition ever, E2574, is 222,000 and a little bit of change.
It's kind of stalled out, so,
It has very much so stalled out, and that makes me a very sad camper. 2576 is at like 54,000, and I don't look at 2582 because it just makes me sad. But go and sign the petition. Get your spouse to sign the petition. Get your kids, parents, get whoever you can that's legally eligible to sign the petition. Because I'm going to keep saying this until the petition gets signed.
If your cat or your dog identifies as a person, get them to sign it too.
Well, I'm not saying malicious compliance, but also malicious compliance. So, like, go sign the petition. It doesn't cost you anything except for 2 minutes of your time times 3 petitions. It takes you 6 minutes to do this. Go and do this. Then get all of your friends to do this. Go and tell your gun clubs to tell their members to do this.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to do anything, but you know what? It'd be nice to have the top 5 petitions in e-petition history all be pro-gun petitions, because that would make a great soundbite for the Conservatives during the next election compared to the Liberal soundbite that 80% of Canadians agree with their new assault weapons ban, because, that's not a cherry-picked statistic that we've beaten to death.
Yeah, well, when you only ask, 8 people, and they all live in Toronto.
Well, I mean, stop asking people in Toronto. You know what we need? Less Toronto. Yeah. Have you considered what less Toronto could do for you?
Yes.
I mean, it would make the lake bigger.
It sure would. All right, Benny, where can everybody find you on the internet?
BennyLewis.ca. We've got sling stuff now, too.
Sweet.
That was still bad. We've got the
you got to work on that
from Neil.
You might need to hire a marketing person there, Benny, because you're not quite selling it.
No. We got the sentry strap. Ever upset when your sling is just flopping around on your rifles in your safe, or when you put them down in the car or something? This fixes that.
I actually have that problem, and I'm interested. Please tell me more.
You could pre-order some in multicam.
Benny's run out of ad rate. Okay, good.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh. Don't
Sounds like
I was going to say, don't show us a gun, Benny, because you can't handle a gun.
Goes over the front of your rifle. Yeah. Da-da-da-da.
I don't know if I like the sound effects that it makes. So you're telling me there's something better than the rubber band that I've been using. That's what I'm hearing.
Velcro goes around your forend, and then you have a magnet on a spongy. And it flaps in place. So even when
what if my forend is bigger than another person's forend?
So this fits on my Tavor, which I don't know about anyone else. It's pretty thick.
Yeah, I mean,
isolate that. Send me the drop.
Yeah, the Tavor forend is about as thick as it.
So it doesn't fit on my forend. I put it on the middle piece. But this should fit on.
That's the technical term.
Yeah.
It should have fit on most rifles.
All right, Gavin, where can everybody find you on the internet?
The best place that you can find me on the internet is on the grams at Urbix_GTA.
All right. For all of our listeners out there in podcast land, I want to remind you that when you sign the petition, click the verification link in your email. Oh, snap. I forgot to apologize to Rod. I almost forgot. Rod.
Yeah.
The deal is that you just need to come on the show. That's it. That's all it is. Like, I got an email today, and I thought he was going to be on the show. No, he wants my questions for the CCFR thing, but like, I thought he was going to finally.
Well, maybe he got hung up on that Peter McKay Zoom meeting where he was going to call us all, but then didn't. Because that was a thing too. I don't know.
Anyway, sign the petition. That's the takeaway. Sign the petition.